the Brunson case. So there's two things here that I think are hot right now. That's the Brunson case and the Act of 1871. I had somebody tell me the Constitution of 1871. I'm like, Constitution? There's no Constitution.
Good for you.
And then, so the Act of 1871, where supposedly the United States became a corporation. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that as well as the Brunson case.
Sure. Yeah, man. No, it's important for us to address these things because, listen, people need hope. They kind of latch on to some of these things either to give up so that they don't have to do anything, right? So if in 1871 we became a corporation and you're a citizen of a corporation and you have no power because there's some board of directors somewhere that's calling all the shots and your vote doesn't matter anymore. If all of that's true, you're off the hook. You don't have to work hard to change the election system. You don't have to go knock on doors. You don't have to be one of those 1,500 volunteers like you talked about or bring, So a lot of people like to latch onto those things because it gets them off the hook. 1871, the whole thing was about incorporating the District of Columbia as a city. It had nothing to do with the United States Constitution. It had nothing to do with changing how our Constitution works. It had to do with specifically the city there. Nothing's changed in our Constitution other than the 27 amendments that have amended it. Unfortunately, the Constitution, which is the court decisions that interpret the Constitution, is like this thick, and it has changed, at least how the Constitution is implemented. We're ruled by the Constitution instead of the Constitution. But Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas are dismantling the Constitution and coming back to the Constitution. That's what we saw last summer with the Bruin case and the Dobbs case and all this. Anyway, that 1871, man, I hear it all the time, just like you do. It's very important for people. That's all a red herring. There's absolutely nothing to it. It has nothing to do with how the Constitution works. And then the Brunson case, I agreed with those brothers, the Brunson brothers out of Utah, in terms of the facts that they laid out and how people didn't do their job under the Constitution and all that. But the remedy was insane. I mean, I dismissed this thing from the beginning and told our people, don't put false hope in this thing. It's not going to happen. There is no way. There is zero chance that the United States Supreme Court, that would not even take the Pennsylvania case that we talked about earlier, that was rock solid, a violation of the Constitution, and that they should have taken. They wouldn't even take that case. There is no way they are going to fire 3/4 of Congress. Now remember, we have three branches. You got the judicial branch, executive branch, and legislative branch. There's no way the judicial branch, especially even this Supreme Court, is going to fire 3/4, 75% of the legislative branch and 100% of the executive branch. In some places we'd call that a coup. I mean, that's literally getting rid of. The remedy was ridiculous. There was no way that was going to happen. And what happened was, because they appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court, they got shot down at every level. They appealed it to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was put on what's called the conference, distributed for conference, which all that means is that some clerk emailed it to all 9 offices, and it was on a list of 413 cases on January 6th of all days, right, for a conference hearing for the Supreme Court, which tells me somebody in the clerk's office was playing a joke and actually enjoyed making this a public thing, that it was distributed for conference. And so we saw headlines everywhere where people were saying it's going to be heard by the Supreme Court. Oral arguments in the Supreme Court are happening. None of that was how it works. It was literally distributed for Congress along with 413 cases. They probably did not even talk about it when they sat around the table. It probably didn't even come up because you got there's no way they talked about 413 cases in the few hours they were there together. And it was, denied cert along with 400 other cases, and a handful of cases were granted cert. I don't even think they discussed it. Anyway, all of that to say, I'm usually the optimist. I hate being the one to pour cold water on an opportunity to restore the Constitution and to punish members of Congress for not doing what they should have done. I mean, Ted Cruz was trying to get them to have a committee that would investigate the electors and then do their job and either reject or deny those electors. They should have done that. There's no question about it. Now, I blame a lot of the folks that went too far on January 6th as well. They were trying to get to that point, and when the whole thing happened at the Capitol, of course, that shut everything down, and then they just came back in and voted and approved all the electors. But all of that to say, the Brunson case was a red herring. I think it was a psyop, honestly. I think the other side did it to get our side ginned up and hopeful, and then be rejected and then lose hope. The very thing you talked about earlier. This once again causes people to check out and say, see, nothing works, and they give up. And so from the beginning, I said, do not not put any hope in the Brunson case. It is not going to happen. And in fact, the way I would tell people, they'd text me and say, hey, do you think this will happen? And I'd text back and say, there's just about as much likelihood that you and I both win the lottery in every state that has a lottery without buying tickets.